There's a moment I see again and again in people who have been doing real inner work for a long time. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't come with a breakdown or a crisis. From the outside, it can look like stability. From the inside, something subtle shifts. Progress slows. Insights still happen, but it doesn't move anything. Understanding accumulates, yet life stays arranged the same way. People often assume this means they've hit a limit, or that they're missing something important, or that they need a new approach. What's usually happening is more precise than that. There's a moment when growth stops being driven by curiosity and starts being governed by comfort. Not surface comfort, structural comfort. The system finds a configuration that works well enough. It functions. It avoids major pain. It feels coherent. And because it works, it quietly becomes protected. Up to that point, growth often feels expansive. There's relief, there's excitement, there's momentum. After that point, growth begins asking for something different. It starts asking for relinquishment. That's where things slow down. People don't usually recognize this moment when it happens. They recognize it later, in hindsight. They say things like, I've been circling the same insight for years. Or, I understand all of this, but nothing's changing. That's an important signal. Understanding alone doesn't reorganize identity. It stabilizes it. Identity changes when something essential is allowed to dissolve without immediate replacement. That's the part most people hesitate at. There's a specific internal negotiation that happens here. The mind says, I'm open to change as long as I remain recognizable to myself. The nervous system agrees within limits. Life rearranges just enough to feel improved. That arrangement becomes familiar. Once it's familiar, it becomes defended. Not consciously, automatically. This is why people can talk fluently about growth while avoiding the one thing that would actually alter their trajectory. They stay busy refining language. They revisit earlier material. They optimize habits. All of that can be useful. None of it disrupts the structure that's already in place. The moment progress slows is often the moment a deeper truth becomes inconvenient. Not threatening, inconvenient. It doesn't fit cleanly into the life that's been built. It would require renegotiating roles, rhythms, or self image. So the system delays. It delays by staying thoughtful. It delays by staying reasonable. It delays by staying informed. This delay doesn't feel like avoidance, it feels like discernment. From the inside, it often sounds like, I just need a little more clarity, or I'm integrating. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes integration becomes a holding pattern. You can tell the difference by how much energy is involved. Real integration feels grounding. There's settling, there's consolidation. A holding pattern feels busy and oddly unsatisfying. There's motion without traction. People in this phase often feel tired without being exhausted. They feel knowledgeable without being anchored. They're not confused, they're suspended. This is the point where many people change directions. They look for a new modality, a new teacher, a new framework. Sometimes it helps. Often it just recreates momentum without altering the underlying structure. Progress resumes when someone is willing to let go of the version of themselves that benefited from earlier growth. That version isn't wrong. It isn't outdated in a negative sense. It's complete. Completion doesn't feel like victory. It feels like neutrality. There's no reward for letting it go. There's just honesty. That honesty tends to arrive quickly. It shows up as a loss of interest in performing insight, a reduced need to explain personal philosophy, a subtle impatience with discussions that once felt stimulating. This can be disorienting. People often worry that they're becoming less engaged or less inspired. What's usually happening is a shift away from growth as an identity. Growth stops being something you do and starts becoming something that happens when alignment permits it. That shift removes a familiar sense of progress. For people who have oriented their self-worth around development, that can feel destabilizing. They wonder who they are without striving. That question isn't meant to be answered immediately. It's meant to be inhabited. My name's Nemo, and I help people like you access past lives and contact their higher self in 3 hours or less. I say that here because people who come to that work are often standing right at this threshold. They're not looking for motivation. They're not looking to fix anything. They've noticed that forward movement requires a different kind of consent than before. That consent doesn't come from effort. It comes from readiness to release. what no longer needs reinforcement. This is where progress becomes quieter and more consequential. Changes happen with less fanfare. Decisions feel simpler. Certain paths lose charge without requiring justification. From the outside, it can look like nothing is happening. Inside, the center of gravity shifts. People who move through this phase tend to stop tracking progress the way they used to. They become less interested in timelines, less concerned with markers. Their lives often reorganize gradually than all at once. People who resist this phase often stay busy for a long time. They remain articulate. They remain engaged. They just don't arrive anywhere new. If you recognize yourself here, there's nothing you need to force. Notice where you're still trying to extract value from what's already given you everything it can. Notice where curiosity has turned into maintenance. Notice where insight no longer carries energy. Those are signals, not problems. Progress doesn't stop because something went wrong. It stops when the next movement requires a different version of you than the one that learned how to grow. That version forms on its own timetable. Let it. You don't need to get ahead of it. You don't need to solve it. Stalling at this point is often the system protecting something that's still organizing itself. Give it space. Movement will return when it no longer needs to be justified. Until then, staying honest with where you are is enough. That honesty is already progress.